Well, back one more time. Shoedogg and Mike, the Dirty Dozen, the 12th episode here today. Thanks for hanging out with us. Got a lot of interesting stuff to talk about. Actually, I got some breaking news here. Breaking as we recorded. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But thank you for joining us. We're on all your favorite podcast outlets, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud. We got a YouTube channel. Please subscribe wherever you can. You'll know when we drop our latest episode. If you want to get in touch with us, Shoedogg M is the Twitter handle. And speaking of our Twitter, oh my goodness, big thanks out to @JDHoop702. That fine gentleman made us the artwork that you see spread about our internet presence, because Mike, neither you or I are anywhere near artistic enough even for that.
Huh.
How you doing, Mike?
I'm good. I'm doing even better since you reminded me it's number 12. That's big. I couldn't help but notice that you missed, during your shout-outs there, you missed the great Justin Hollis, who is basically on Twitter trying to bring unity to wrestling fandom in all the best ways. Just, you know, how reposting and retweeting and all that is like, you know, you want to share the good stuff. And so we've benefited off of that, and we've found some cool things because of that, and he's just a good dude. So, shout out.
Hell yeah, man. Justin must think we're amongst the good stuff. So, what do you got, Mike? I'm going to throw the ball in your court to start the show off here.
Well, I was watching wrestling this past week, and I was thinking about these little smirks that I get here and there when programming starts to veer more towards like what we used to call the golden era of, you know, kind of TV MA and TV 14 and kind of edgier. It's been creeping in a little bit. AEW's certainly not shy. I think they're saying shit at least 5 times on every episode now.
And they're ripping dudes' backs open with skateboards covered in thumbtacks.
Yeah. Well, that's true too. The gore is definitely on a rated R level at times, but and I'll be honest, I didn't see this Raw Underground business to know how edgy that is or isn't. But I also like, you know how cool it used to be back in the day when Austin would clear the ring or whatever, or he'd sneak up on somebody and stun him, and he would just dump beer all over himself. And I don't think at the time a whole lot of people were thinking, oh, this is this is what's wrong with society, or at least he embraced being the anti-hero or whatever. But I always thought it was cool, you know, he'd invite somebody else to come drink with him, and he just, you know, by the time he leaves, his whole t-shirt is doused in beer, you know, beer all over the ring. He's just covered in beer, and I'm wondering if we're going back in that direction now, because I don't know about you, but seems like when the ratings are this low, they gotta basically not take anything off the table.
Well, AEW's doing that. I mean, I guess you could argue that Raw is a little bit edgier between the underground and the stripper shots and the Retribution, the random group of masked men that are out there, which I've only read about because I've virtually entirely sworn off the current product, but we'll talk more about that a little bit later on, I think. Is the Retribution, are you familiar with that angle?
As much as I've seen screenshots on Twitter, and I guess it's, correct me if I'm wrong, they've got a little bit of a intriguing mystery angle to it, where it's like a whodunit kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So, whatever. That's, some people are into that.
Bunch of guys in masks wreaking havoc as much as they can, doing things like cutting off the power to the arena and throwing bricks through windows. They are real rebels.
So they're like Vince's version of Antifa or something.
Oh, wow, I hadn't thought of that. Interesting.
I always assume when I'm trying to figure out what a wrestling angle is about in WWE, my first thought is always, what horrible thing is Vince McMahon trying to pervert into something much worse to make money off of?
Well, I guess that's... You answered your question a few days ago. You posted it on our Twitter there about whether anybody would do a Corona angle. We don't have a Corona angle. Maybe we have an Antifa angle. Yeesh.
Gotta have something. Well, hey, speaking of drinking on camera...
One quickie on the Retribution, and then we will drink. I did see an interesting proposal of who might be leading the retribution, and that was CM Punk. Now, if that happens, you might get me to watch a little bit, but that's probably maybe wishful thinking from the interweb.
I could easily see McMahon throwing an irresistibly large pile of cash at CM Punk and being like, hey, we're about to lose our deal with Fox. Come do something crazy and fucked up and people will tune in. And just giving him so much money that even CM Punk, with all his straight edge principles and his vegan ice cream and whatever, would be like, you know what, Vince, I know a good deal when I see it, because it's like $1 Million Man said, everybody has their price.
Yeah, well, that could be the one thing that would pop some interest, because right now it's just, like I said, non-existent for so many people. So, anywho, you brought up the suggestion that maybe as we roll along here, it's time for the ceremonial shot ski. What do you got over there?
Just the usual standard bourbon. Got some Knob Creek today. Nothing, no special editions or nothing like that. But I was gonna ask you too. What do you think of when you watch Hangman drinking on camera? Wouldn't you say there's something distinctly different about it? Because like Stone Cold would be bathing himself in beer, but Hangman's actually like they're all going to his belly.
Dude, I'm gonna believe that what he drank on that one bar scene was some nature of an iced tea, but if what was in that glass was actually liquor, he fucking chugged a whole sifter glass full.
Hey, if he works out and he's got a high metabolism and he's a big dude, he could probably take a couple more drinks. Well, anybody could take a couple more drinks than me. I think my dad could still drink me under the table at this point.
Hangman Page is the new Stone Cold, except instead of riding Zambonis, he rides fucking Clydesdales. Jeez Louise, we're not even drinking yet. He rides fucking Clydesdales. There we go.
We're gonna get you a nice Christmas card this year with some fresh fallen snow and some Clydesdales coming up the way with a passenger buggy.
There we go. All right. Salute.
Well, hey, here's to you and here's to 12. Ooh, cold.
All right, so that's perfect actually. Now that I have a little fresh liquor on my throat, is the perfect time to break out my newscaster voice. Because nothing says authoritative 70s style newsman than being drunk at the noon hour.
Wait, how breaking is it? Like, do I know about it?
Said you didn't. It hit about 3 hours ago online.
Okay, so 3 hours ago was before I ate.
You'd know what I'm talking about. All right.
Okay.
This we'll go with the direct news source from the local area in which it was reported, not the re-reports that are all about the internet. From the Tampa Bay Times. That's in Florida for the uninitiated out there. Man arrested on kidnapping charge at Lutz home of WWE star Sonya Deville. Philip A. Thomas is accused of stalking the victim on social media. He was found inside the home with a knife, plastic zip ties, duct tape, and mace. Further details. A South Carolina man was arrested early Sunday for attempting to kidnap a Lutz homeowner he had never met but stalked on social media for years. Investigators did not identify the victim, but the home where the suspect was arrested is owned by Daria Bernato, 26, who performs for WWE under the name Sonya Deville and stars in the E! Cable reality series Total Divas. Philip A. Thomas II, 24, began planning the abduction 8 months ago, according to the sheriff's office. Yada yada yada, parked his car, walked to her house. Thomas cut a hole in the patio screen and remained on the patio 3 to 4 hours while watching and listening through the windows. For the record, that is Saturday night into Sunday morning. At 2:43 a.m. Sunday, after the homeowner had gone to bed, Thomas entered the home through a sliding glass window, activating the alarm. The homeowner looked out a window, spotted Thomas on the property, and fled with a guest in a car. The homeowner called 911. This is where this guy really wins Moron of the Year award beyond even doing such a thing. Thomas was still in the house when deputies arrived. He was carrying a knife, plastic zip ties, duct tape, mace, and other items, and told deputies he was planning to take the homeowner hostage. Thomas, listed on a jail booking sheet as an Applebee's crew member, had been charged with aggravated stalking, armed robbery of a dwelling, attempted armed kidnapping, and criminal mischief, being held without bail.
Yikes.
Yeah, apparently, Homie was a very, there were further details in a different article, a very fervent, creepy, pathological follower of her on Twitter. So that happened. I mean, I thought we were just going to make some jokes about Marty Jannetty killing somebody, but then we have a legitimate current day situation that has occurred.
Oh man. So go back a second. Did the article say that didn't it sound in the first half like they didn't know who was occupying the home at first during it, but then later in the article they referred to them as the homeowner? So wouldn't that eliminate all doubt as to who was there? It just seems really weird that they don't just name her outright.
Well, it's some journalistic, I don't know, whatever, but it's just the way they formed the article. But all the relevant details are included.
So basically, well, but if it was her child or something, they would have said daughter and not guest.
Right. I think the point being, Sonya had a guest at the time that evening, and her.
It was Otis.
So, but Sonya's, from what I just found out today, the only openly lesbian in the WWE. Whereas in AEW, you have chicks with dicks running around. But either way, it's not the time to make gender bending jokes. I mean, this poor woman had a psychopath on her ass.
Probably the thing that keeps me up at night the most is knowing how many truly sick individuals there are out there at any given moment.
Yeah.
Which there's nothing funny about that.
And it just says so much about the risk of celebrity, especially in the social media era. These people, they feel like they know you. You know, that air, that barrier. And I mean, stars have had stalkers since as long as there's been stars. But the people, the truly psychotic people amongst us, weren't given that little bit of a line that they could, pull in and feel like they know me, they love me, oh, they like, oh, they retweeted this thing I did. Oh, Sonya, you're lovely. I mean, Marilyn Monroe didn't have to deal with crap like that, at least. She just had to deal with Kennedys.
Well, don't feed the sharks here, but some of your conspiracy types would love to tell you all about how she might have paid the ultimate price for being involved with the Kennedys.
This is, it's quite possible.
But again, I say don't feed the sharks because I absolutely loathe it. I don't like turning everything into a damn made-for-TV movie.
I'm aware of that conspiracy, but she did legitimately die straight up from just a direct fucking pill overdose, right? Nothing she probably wouldn't have done herself.
It was barbiturates. Somebody could have dosed her. They could have put it in her martini. They could have put it in her meatloaf. They could have put it in her goddamn cold medicine.
Somebody did that to Elvis too. I mean, I think Marilyn had a documented drug issue, didn't she?
That's probably some old school CIA overthrowing government's top secret spy shit, like guys that have cyanide pills strapped to their ankle.
Well,
you
make a valid point. Just like Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself, I mean, there's no reason the Kennedys couldn't have concocted whatever backstory they wanted about Marilyn Monroe after the fact. So touche on that regard.
Oh no, I meant like in terms of, well, and again, I'm not one of these people, so I don't pretend to have done homework on it, but I think the version that I know is that she was also targeted by the same people that killed him.
Okay.
Playing footsies with the most powerful man in the world.
So you're saying she was, if anything, guilty by association, perhaps?
Well, so say the basement dwellers.
Well, we're not going to get. I don't even want to get started on the basement dwellers today. There's enough other less depressing things to talk about than than the QAnons amongst us, for fuck's sake. I mean, great googly moogly.
Yeah, it's really funny to give yourself some perspective. If you think about the fact that there's people who talk derogatorily about adults who watch pro wrestling, but then you have to remember that there's giant groups of thousands of people out there in America somewhere who think that there's this imaginary person named Q that's risking life and limb just because he anonymously loves the general public so much. Oh man. Then you feel like whatever you're watching is not so silly anymore.
All I know is I'm going to line up for my Bill Gates approved COVID chip vaccine.
Are you gonna get one?
Hold on, I'm enjoying Ollie's cameo over there.
Oh, you hear that?
Oh yeah. Ollie says hello to everybody out there in podcast land.
That was another shout out. It's never too late.
She's like, I'm gonna be on the radio, Daddy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
gonna try and sound like you, but not as stupid.
Yeah, speaking of the basement dwellers yet again and the Q-bots. Oh my god. Yeah, well, it does scare the shit out of you how many people that are just seem semi-normal and maybe even slightly literate or educated turn out to be just brainwashed.
Or worse.
Or worse.
Or they're otherwise capably intelligent and have just chosen to wander this path of utter superstition and silliness. Where it's like, yeah, I can tell you exactly what size retaining wall you'll need for your property there because I see the world in mathematical blueprints and I'm really good with math and I have a successful career. But at the same time, they think that Donald J. Trump is throwing himself on the sword for freedom and liberty and success and righteousness. And it's just like when you watch serial killer movies or docs and they talk about people that knew him or whatever, and they were like, oh, you would have never assumed, what was his face? Ted Bundy, who was super charismatic and popular and stuff like that. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
You're just willing, you compartmentalize your brain so that you can go along with this stupid thing, but then also still function and be smart in other areas. Which is a good and a bad thing, because that means grown-ups, adults can compartmentalize and they can still enjoy their, silly behaviors and things that they listen to and watch, and doesn't necessarily make you but that's no excuse, don't get me wrong.
No, there's no excuse for them. Did you see that the media coverage that the post office debacle has received has led to the post office now saying that the removal of boxes will cease entirely? They got caught with Downey got caught with his hand in the mail jar, and they're like fuck, they figured it out. They're so smart. They didn't listen to Hannity.
How can you not expect in this day and age that if you could drive a giant truck around and fill it over the top with mailboxes, that people aren't going to see that and start taking pictures of it and shit?
Yep. He's and he has to walk this shit back because he thinks he can try all as he wants to discredit the mainstream media, but when the truth comes to shove, that the mainstream media is still what 80% of Americans watch, meaning a reasonable facsimile of the truth that doesn't prescribe to the Trump dreamland. They figure out what's going on. I just hope there hasn't been too much damage done to repair. In the meantime, I mean, I know you've explained you plan to make sure that your ballot is directly delivered to the election clerk herself. So.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna pretend it's like paying back somebody cash that I owe them.
I want to make sure you see it.
I'm not gonna leave it at the drop-off site. I'm not gonna mail it to you. I'm gonna hand it to you.
Yeah. I still feel great faith in the traditional vote, and I mean, voting around here in our little rural stick was very easy for the primaries. I mean, obviously there'll be a higher turnout for the general election, but there's no reason for me to fear going to vote in person. So, and I don't believe that Russia can actually formulate the results of the voting machines. I hope not. That's the one far level of the story that I can't quite grab, you know? Like I think Russia's diddled in the process every way imaginable by their following of the weak sheep online, but I don't think they like physically, change numbers of the vote. I think that's just all conspiracy theory from either side of the fence. But maybe I'm being idealistic for once.
I don't know.
You're not taking that risk.
Well, we've always had the portrayals of foreign governments as inept and laughable in our greatest comedy films. So it depends, I guess, on whether you picture the Russians as these, doting, abrasive, square-headed Frankensteins that can't, bang two bricks together, or if you see them as this aspiring world power. See, if you're a biographer, you could probably think about who would gain from something like that. Like what the motivation would be. Because I think that's what every story is. Every good story that's told is always based entirely around a motivation that somebody has for something. And so Putin, who was, an adult and working actively with the Kremlin back when the Soviet Union was still in power, according to people who understand him, they've said that it would be like his wet dream to fucking get one over on the West, quote unquote, this order of life that we've known, and break them up. And that's why I think a lot of people attribute the European Union strife and the Brexit with Putin as well, because it's just another chance for him to, fuck up the Western Alliance, supposedly.
Right. Chinks in the armor of democracy.
So if you frame it from the perspective of with that motivation, what would Putin actually be able to do, then it becomes easier to buy into this idea that they're hacking the election, because it's like, well, this guy's pretty much bet his whole life on, I'm going to get a revenge tour for the USSR. And if that's what he dedicates his whole life to, then really nothing's impossible.
And giving us Donnie Trump for 4 years, thank fuck only 4 years. Please, dear God, I don't believe in only 4 years. That's a great way to achieve it, because he has done the damage that's happened in this country, as seismic as the drift was between ideologies. It's somehow gotten worse in the last 3.5 years.
It amazes me that the closest that wrestling has come to some kind of current affairs foreign villain was having Rusev be like semi-fake Russian, even though he was Bulgarian or whatever. I don't know, seems like a golden opportunity to pass up on, to have somebody out here who's like, and when we overthrow the Democrats again, like somebody should take that low-hanging fruit, for God's sake. Your ratings are in the toilet. Let's get a Putin loyalist out here. Bring back what's his face from what was that? The Oddities. Kurgan. He was Russian, wasn't he?
Nah, I don't know. Well, give him enough vodka. The way he danced, he could be Russian.
He was Kazakhstani.
Half. I don't. Well, yeah. I mean, that's about the only one they have left. Because the Russians is the only evil foreign menace that's left, because WWE's trying to break into every other market. You know what I mean? Like, it ain't like in the 50s and the 60s when the fucking Russians and the French and the Chinese and the Japanese and, my God, those Koreans. It was like Donald Trump's America. Everybody who wasn't fucking white was a heel.
I disagree with you. Hear me out on this.
Okay.
They bring back the Hart Foundation, but now there are a bunch of snooty Canadians who want to mock the American crowd for not being able to leave the country because they've mishandled COVID so bad.
But again, they hope to sell tickets.
No. They hope
Canada
to sell
again.
No. They hope to produce content that people are interested in. Because at this point, they got to aim for the smallest goal they can hit. They just need to get people watching the shit again.
Yeah, you make a valid point. Fucking house show attendance in Montreal doesn't matter much these days. I suppose you're right there.
Nah, but you get Natalia out there with a hot mic and have her talking about, you're just jealous you can't come north of the border because you people don't even know how to shower or wear a fucking mask. That seems like an easy one.
Well, you could take. I like the idea of that kind of promo, but I think we could go with the different nation with it.
Oh boy.
Give that idea for a promo into the hands of William Regal.
Oh, thank goodness. I thought you were going to say, teach it verbatim to Shinsei Nakamura and have him do it over and over again. Because it's the only thing he has memorized at the moment in English.
God, boy, there's a talent that WWE just sent right down the crapper. I mean, you could count them. You wouldn't have enough fingers and toes between us and all of our immediate family members to list the number of careers WWE's flushed down the toilet. But Shinsuke was a fucking phenom when he came in. Do you remember the first time I saw him? I think I fucking called you right away, and I'm like, you need to see this guy. This guy's unlike anything you've ever seen in a wrestling ring. And within a month, what was special about him was gone.
I'll admit, I didn't know anything of him before he came to the big leagues. So I can't be one of those people that's like, oh, you ruined his momentum. I know nothing about his momentum.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Neither did I. Which is why when he first showed up and you see that magnetic charisma that he has for the first time, you're blown away. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I was a fan of the dude immediately, having never seen him, because he was so different.
Did they ever have him play the evil foreigner? Or no? I can't remember.
Well, he was kicking everybody in the dick all the time there for a while. Does that make him a sneaky Jap?
Well,
I don't think we can say that anymore. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
We just got canceled. There it is. That's the moment. Oh no, we can't say that no more.
Good God.
Go, do it like DDP. Good God.
You just Don Imus yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're okay in that regard.
Well, no, I don't think you have to be from another country to be really famously hated for kicking people in the dick all the time. I never kicked anybody in the dick.
I never took a shot to the jimmies that wasn't self-inflicted. There was that time in college, in the college radio station, that I sat on my balls when I was working on a show, and the studio mic was on into the TV studio next door. And I sat on my balls and let out a manic scream and got the feedback of, "Are you all right in there?" Barely. Hold on. Barely.
That must have been terrific.
It was painful, is what it was, because I was going a good every bit of 250 back then, and I plopped my ass into that chair. Oh man. So, speaking of plopping our asses into chairs. Are you gonna plop your ass into the chair and watch SummerSlam on Sunday night, the biggest party of the summer, presented by WWE?
Maybe not real time, but I think I'm committed to checking out isn't it AJ Styles and Jeff Hardy?
That is on SmackDown next week. It is not part of the SummerSlam card.
Oh,
You're
okay.
right on that being a worthwhile match to watch.
Well, I'll disregard then. I'll catch that one, but I also wanted to see what mess they make of this ex-Wyatt family member showdown, which, to me, if they had done it correctly, could have been one of the coolest culminating storylines ever, with, brothers who aren't really brothers. They're in, like, this Manson-like cult. One of them gets out. Then, that could have been some really cutting-edge shit, but obviously, without having watched it every week, I'm going to assume that they have at least fucked it up a little bit along at this point, before they get to SummerSlam.
At some point, they fucked it up with Extreme Rules when they had that swamp battle, cheesier than a goddamn Toxic Avenger movie thing that they did. Oh my lord. If it weren't for that, I agree with you. Like, the match has potential on the surface, but to me, they killed it with that last piece of dreck that they put out. One man's opinion. My overall view, Mike, I'm going to say it and I mean it. This is the first time, probably ever, There's not even on tape delay. There ain't one thing on this card that I want to watch.
Not at all.
Unless I hear enough, oh my God, you got to see this about something, I am going to be a 100% boycott on SummerSlam. This card is very poor to me. And like I just said, the one match that might have had potential, they ruined with that. I mean, here's the full card in a nutshell. Drew McIntyre defending against Randy Orton. Just thinking of him fucking wrestling makes me want to take a snooze. You got the Strowman Bray match, tag team championship from Raw, the Street Profits, who are okay, versus Andrade and Angel Garza, two people who have never meant jack in my mind. Just one man's opinion.
I already forgot their names.
Exactly.
I know you said two people, but I couldn't tell which was which. Exactly. I don't care.
MVP versus Apollo Crews for the U.S. Championship. I mean, you could argue that this next match might be the featured attraction. Seth Rollins versus Dominic Mysterio. Maybe if they'd have built it differently, but I don't really care to see Dominic avenge Seth Rollins popping a golf ball out of his dad's mask. So
that's a pretty high-profile match to give to a kid, isn't it?
I'll be honest, I do not know what his legitimate experience is. I mean, I'm sure he's...
Well, have you watched him wrestle for the last 10 years for some promotion?
Well, of course not, but I mean...
Well, then he's green as shit. That's my point. Doesn't that seem weird?
Well, you and I aren't following the Mexican wrestling scene very good. We don't know that he wasn't down there fighting in the bull ring at Tijuana for a bit. Just remember, Ray Jr. started in the ring when he was fucking 14 years old. What do they say Dominic is? No, he's 21 probably. Because it was SummerSlam 15 years ago when Ray and Eddie fought for custody of Dominic, who was like a 5 or 6 year old at the time.
Oh my God, I almost forgot about that. That's such a piss poor. You talk about blowing an opportunity for storytelling.
Yeah. So if there's one thing I watch after the fact, that probably will be it, more so than anything to see what Dominic does. But I'm not excited to see it by any means.
Now, if Rey Mysterio comes down to the ring and helps Dominic win, and then Dominic turns on him, and him and Seth Rollins beat the crap out of Ray Jr., and then Dominic grabs the mic and points to the sky and says, "This is for you, Dad," then I'll be intrigued.
And then Vicky Guerrero comes out and says she's really Dominic's mother to boot.
I don't think so, but I think if you're going to go into the territory of trying to do something that's so shocking because it's so personal or whatever, then you have to really go balls out. Like, what was better than in ECW when they did the whole angle with Raven, Sandman, and the Sandman's kid? That was top notch, and those guys intense. Did not have a bunch of high-earning TV writers in their room. That was, probably those two guys and Paul Heyman in a fucking truck somewhere while one of them was spilling beer and the other one was snorting coke.
You're damn right. And there was real emotion in that. Real fake emotion instead of fake emotion, which is the worst. Actually, did you know that speaking of the Guerrero family, I had her name written down, but Eddie and Vicky's daughter is in developmental now.
Is she?
Yeah. So we have a third generation, perhaps fourth generation Guerrero entering the business.
So what does that mean? Like when nowadays, like remember you used to, if you were in developmental, you were in OVW. So is NXT developmental, or do they have something else before that, or?
You make an interesting query. Well, there's people that just straight up are training at the Performance Center. So I mean, she might just be in the strictly training phase there. I don't think she's on NXT at all though yet.
I thought the main purpose of that place was to let people rehab their injuries and work out and shit.
No, that's kind of where they train. I mean, that's where all the everyone that's training is. I mean, even Sean, you hear about Sean being down there.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously they're, they might, I don't know if they're training people from scratch, but it's certainly where they're fine-tuning them into the notoriously phrased but sadly true WWE style. Which is another reason to love AEW, because people are just allowed to fucking wrestle the way they want to. You don't have to all match the same kind of move set.
I mean, because they're what you call it, the corporate ministry. That's who runs the programming. Not the actual corporate ministry, which was way cooler and it had Big Daddy V in it.
And Midian.
Yep.
Okay, so real quick, since we got this far down the card, dual women's championship matches. Asuka is fighting for both of them in separate matches.
I saw that.
This was news to me. And then we have a match that I dare say is probably not going to happen.
Okay.
Scheduled to be a hair versus hair match between Mandy Rose and the undoubtedly psychologically shocked Sonya Deville.
Huh.
So we could probably count that one off of the card.
You're actually not going to watch any of this? I feel like you're not telling the truth.
I did give myself the caveat there that if I watch anything, it would be Seth and Ray, or Seth and Dominic. I'm honest to God, man, the rest of it is an utter and complete bore to me.
Let me be clear about something. You and I both have shit on their product as of late, and we will continue to if it continues to be shit. However, people, especially on the internet, who play into this all or nothing philosophy where you're like either team WWE or team AEW or whatever, or you're the cool libertarian guy at the party who's team NWA Power or whatever. You would believe that you'd have to just be like, oh, I'm going to take a pass on SummerSlam. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit about Survivor Series. Maybe I'll check out WrestleMania when they bring back crowds, but other than that, when you and I decide not to take in something and then people say, well, you can't criticize it if you're not watching it. Well, listen, it's kind of like I've seen enough.
Exactly.
Things are going to have to make a pretty dramatic turn before you can start shitting on me for not being open-minded enough. If every time you look at it, it's utter garbage.
Exactly. And you eventually just give up. And I mean, I've whittled down to just watching the pay-per-views for months, even before the empty arena era, because that weekly programming is dreadful. I'm not going to sit through fucking 3 hours of show. I mean, you DVR this, that, or the other, but hypothetically, not going to watch a fucking 3-hour show to see 15 or 20 minutes, if that, of worthwhile content. It's that simple. And they expect people to do that. It ain't going to fucking happen.
I've always been thinking, well, at least in the last handful of years or so, what balls they have to not only do that, but then tack on these pre-show and post-show bulk, which is just like, I don't give a shit what kind of lousy talk shows you're into, or if you used to like Sally Jesse Raphael or whatever. There is no use, like, the kickoff show. Okay, maybe if it's one of the big pay-per-views and they're actually going to be breaking down matches and stuff, and it's like a football pregame show, then I'm cool with that. But these like extra exclusive interviews and segments that they have where people try to hone their promo skills and stuff, it's just so awkward and whack. It hurts to watch.
Mm-hmm.
It's like going to your friend's go to see your friend's band play live and you know they're fucking terrible, but you got to stand there and like bop your head to it.
The old pity attendance.
Depends on what age you are though too, because if you think about it, you and I have to be a little more judicious with our time, so we're going to be a little more scrutinous. Whereas if you're 17 or whatever, you're in quarantine, you don't have a job, you could probably throw away a couple hours a week on that. It's going to be a while for me, I think.
You could still come up with 100 million better things to do with that 3 hours of your time. Watch some Attitude Era Raw and see some shit that's actually entertaining. I don't fucking know. Watch the Test Pattern on channel 703. That would be an improvement, I think, because that little tone is soothing. It helps you go to sleep.
Or even leave it on, but then multitask, do a jigsaw puzzle.
Nah, this is true.
I couldn't imagine. Even when, well, as well as anybody that I was digging Raw and SmackDown during the Hulu era because I could see it in like its condensed format.
Right. You had the cheaters version, which was nice, no doubt.
But I gotta say, even if I still had Hulu, I don't know that I'd be dipping into it every week. I'd kind of be like, up that again. Maybe I'd get a couple minutes into it, but then I'd be like, well,
Like,
you know,
oh well, this is crazy, right? And then once and that was how I was for a while too. I'd tune in at the beginning, and I'd watch for a little while until something would fucking turn me away from it. And then maybe a half an hour later, I'll sneak back in and see what's going on, and there'd be some horse shit. You know what I mean? Like, it's irrelevant because it's almost a thing of my past. I hope they can turn it around, but who knows? I mean, there were people talking like we're talking during the Attitude Era. Just remember that, as fucked up as that seems. You know, there's people that just fucking hated that current product. They thought it was awful while we were eating it up with a spoon covered in sugar.
well, that was timing too, because we were age appropriate to be the weakest targets for the Attitude Era.
Oh, sure.
I don't think my current self would necessarily be into it either. I mean, we'll see, because, like I said, I kind of see little hints of it here and there that they might venture back towards as Jericho would say, the coveted demo, the 18 to 49 crowd.
Well, for the record, AEW this past week, for the first time ever, were the demo gods of all TV wrestling, not just Wednesday head to head. AEW actually had more 18 to 34s than Raw, even though Raw as a total has twice as many viewers. So that really tells you that most of Raw's viewers are, well, I guess it's 18 to 34. So actually well, I don't know then. Do you think more of Raw's current viewers are on the younger side of that, the children, or are they on the older side of that, the adults who are just still watching it out of habit like we finally stopped doing ourselves?
I'm probably not the best judge of that, because, as you know, if I were to go off of what I know about today's children just by going outside, I would assume that these kids are allowed to watch porn at this point. Because because my neighbors, they'd be like, "Oh, you want to watch Raw? Here, I'll show you the one where Triple H has some chick in the 18th row dump him out on camera." But no, I think it's probably still your father and child combos, because even if you just go back to when they had crowds, that's who was in the crowd, right? It was the middle-aged dad and his, younger kids going and buying up all the tickets. But it wasn't like the 90s, if that's what you're asking, because that was like people went on dates to wrestling shows, and people went with a big group of their friends, and
it was the place to go. It was the hot
yeah.
fucking show, man. We got to go to Raw. I mean, they were packing every arena sold out to the Raptors every week for fucking a year and a half straight.
Yeah, now it's like taking your kid to see the Harlem Globetrotters. Not that I would, or that I wouldn't. Caleb has not really jumped up and down and been like, I want to go to a wrestling show. But I think if you introduce it as like a rite of passage or a tradition or whatever, then you can it'd be just like anything else. It'd just be like, kids that root for their dad's favorite baseball team or something like that. But that doesn't mean that it necessarily has to be all that entertaining, because they're pretty much just trying to make processable dog food. Like, okay, the people lap this up, they'll buy the $40 T-shirt for this crap.
No, you said it yourself. I guess you'll be the dad bringing his son soon enough. And ironically enough, neither you or I were introduced to wrestling that way. Both of our dads hated. We had to figure it out on our own that we dug it. But you're right. I don't see what could draw a new fan to wrestling these days that isn't, like you said, kind of indoctrinated into it in some fashion.
I don't know if I'd go that far, because I know for a fact that if you put on some of these episodic TV shows that the younger demo is into, or the Netflix shows, some of those are a lot more corny than you would assume especially if you watch a bunch of episodes in a row. I just think the bar is set so low for entertainment these days that it's up to the individual person whether you care how hard your entertainment is trying or not. We care, but a lot of people don't care. People, somebody as big as WWE is going to get away with that, whereas if you're an upstart or if you're a smaller indie operation, then you're still kind of treating it like old school pro wrestling. It's not really, you're not a sector of the entertainment industry. You're not this corporate player. You're just literally trying to run a wrestling promotion. And shitty enough, your main competition is a giant corporate player. I mean, that's garbage. That's like saying, oh, yeah, I know this guy. He runs this little restaurant in my neighborhood. He makes these delicious fried, Puerto Rican foods. It's so spicy and so good. But he's shutting down because they're putting a Perkins across the street. It's like,
Yeah.
too many people are willing to settle for the fucking bland milkshake.
Well, you know what just kind of occurred to me in a way?
Hmm.
Vince McMahon achieved his goal of the quote he used to use in the 80s. I mean, not of taking over wrestling, he did that. But he said he wanted to be the Walt Disney of sports entertainment. And the way we just put it, and the fact that now they're more about creating content and they're more about branding, I think Vince McMahon has quite literally achieved that goal in a way. You know what I mean? Like WWE has become synonymous with wrestling for many years now.
Oh, yeah. For just about what I would still say is probably 90% or more of America who knows what wrestling is.
Yeah, you're right. They couldn't name one current guy. The best they could do is think of Stone Cold and The Rock, I'm sure.
No, John
But they're
Cena.
out
I
there.
think Cena's up there
Cena did go mainstream.
because he shoves himself down your throat the way The Rock did for a while there when he was still crossing over.
Interesting thing, and then maybe we'll wrap this one up. Eric Bischoff caught a little flack online recently for saying on his podcast that John Cena was the last true wrestling star. And as soon as he said it, I'm like, yeah, he's absolutely right.
You think so?
Yeah, I do. He's the last guy who moved the needle. He's the last guy that anybody would go out of their way to say, I'm buying a ticket, with the kids. I'm buying a ticket to go see John Cena. In that one individual person. And I don't think there's one guy since then who has that stroke.
You don't think that if it were a little premature to say that Roman Reigns is at least knocking on the door?
They tried to shove him through the door for years, but the door doesn't seem to want to come down.
I'll tell you, I wouldn't have thought of him for the same reason, but as soon as you said something about the kid factor, I was like, you know what? This guy is over with the kids, isn't he? I mean,
Yeah.
Again, I can't go by my kids because the girls like the female wrestlers and my son likes Cody Rhodes, so...
Yeah, maybe him, but I mean, certainly nobody else. Like Seth Rollins, he might have been the glue that's been holding WWE together, but I don't think he's somebody that people. I got to go see Seth Rollins wrestle.
I mean, we joke about we joke about the race factor in wrestling because you and I are not bigots, so it's probably not as big of a factor in our eyes as it is in a lot of other people's. But I heard somewhere a while ago that the reason the WWE corporate people like Seth Rollins so much, and may or may not be the main reason he gets the push, is because he technically fulfills the non-white demographic because he's of Latino descent. And so when he gets a shit ton of camera time, that just feeds into WWE's diversity factor and how much credit they get for giving airtime to minorities. That may or may not be true, and no, I don't have a source for it, but man, when I heard that or read it or whatever the fuck it was, it really stuck out in my head. Like, wouldn't it suck to find out at some point that a big part of the reason you were considered a top performer was because of your ethnicity or whatever? Like, I'm not a WWE stockholder, but I would assume that they're held to a different standard for stuff like that. Didn't we hear about somebody complaining about that with AEW, how it's kind of not diverse in its male performers?
I don't even think that's necessarily true. They got lots of Hispanics. I think it's an unfounded notion. I mean, you want to talk about people who check all kinds of boxes? We can bring up Sonny Kiss and Nyla Rose again.
Hang on, I had a salient point for once in my life, and I don't want it to fade away, like most things that pop into my head do. Even if you just look at diversity for both companies and you compare who would be tasked with promoting that diversity, AEW, I think, gets the check mark in that category because you've got Brandy Rhodes as the chief brand officer, and she's pretty diverse. Whereas you've got Stephanie McMahon as the chief branding officer, and she's basically just her dad with a wig. Yeah, she gives me the creeps. Did you see that
Daddy's
tweet
little girl.
where she was getting her hair done and she was giving these crazy eyes to the camera? Dude, I was thinking of tweeting something so rude about her face because she had all these caked on layers of makeup and eyeshadow and what looked like paint to me, like I think she was slowly turning into a clown. But before I even got a chance to send tweet, Triple H retweeted it and said something even worse than I was gonna say. And then he's married to the broad. He was like, "Oh yeah, trust me,
Nice.
people. When you see this look, you better run." And he puts it in all caps. I'm like, "Damn, dude, you're not getting laid for a week." Although he probably doesn't want to get laid for a week. He probably needs a week off. I think she straps one on, honestly.
All right. Well, I don't think we can top the thought of Triple H taking it from Stephanie with a strap on. So how about we wrap up this exciting episode?
No. I'm other than reiterating how rad I think it is that we got to 12 without anybody losing a limb or getting censored by the FCC or having fan mail with a bomb in it or anything. It's pretty cool.
Well, now that you've put that idea out there, watch the mail if it
What are you so
arrives.
worried for?
Do
It
you
ain't
know
gonna happen.
that about this delayed mail bullshit? Living super out in the sticks like I do, we're only getting mail like 3 days a week right now. For the
Dear
record,
Lord.
I live in one of those slowed down mail zones. Fuck Trump. All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us. Please spread the love. Share us on Twitter, Shoedogg M, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, YouTube. We're out there. We would love you to join us. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell everybody. Thank you again. And remember, if you have an hour to waste it with us.